Okay, it's 11:01. I'll go ahead and get started. And, um, and please keep in mind that although I'll be speaking for the first few minutes, this is an open forum discussion. So I'll stop several times and ask for participation. This is not a type of webinar where somebody's talking at you for a long time. It's really to help us collaborate and to share thoughts and ideas and help answer each other's questions in support of these various projects that are going on. So I'll go ahead and give a quick intro for those that are new to this. This is a second webinar that we're holding. I have committed to doing 10 of these, one each day for 10 days, just so we can kickstart the discussions. And likely after that, they'll drastically decrease in frequency, maybe having one a week or so, if that. But I wanted to make sure that we can kind of set the playing field here. So the company that I work for is SOP Technologies. We actually focus on environmental technologies, but because of this issue, we decided to see how we can help. And what we're doing with the Ventilators Collaboration Network is we're not designing a brand new device. There are many devices out there that are being worked on right now, these open source and low cost devices. So we figured, why don't we have a space where people have more opportunity to share knowledge with each other between these different groups and help each other, right? Because I think the goal is for all of these different products or solutions to be vetted, to be tested, and for as many of them to be available as possible so that we can meet the demands of people that are in urgent need of this, not only for the COVID-19 pandemic, but maybe in the future when there's another pandemic or issue that requires a very high amount of ventilators during an emergency situation. So I'll go here to the next slide. I'm just gonna quickly give an overview of the website and what we have here. So that was just about a slide. I already spoke about that. Once you get to the home page of the site, you'll see the upcoming webinar links. I've also added a link there so you can download the recordings and the chat logs for previous webinars. This one right now is being recorded, and also anything that I read in the chat will be shared publicly. So just keep that in mind. And not meant to scare anyone, just letting you know. Also, we added a link up there that I'll talk about soon. But you see here, you have a newsletter sign up and also the Slack channel that you can join. The next page is government contacts. So if you have any link that you want to share, you can simply click on the form there. And once you fill out that form, it will automatically populate the spreadsheet below. I just added information about the two that I know, that I found. But if you have any other information, other links, feel free to add those there. The next page is for suppliers and vendors. So far, we have about 12 suppliers and vendors. So these are manufacturers, engineers that want to support these efforts that have already signed up. So if you're working on a project and you're looking for someone to connect with, you're not sure which manufacturers might be interested in this, several have already filled out this form and they have entered their own information in this section. I haven't entered any of that. So these are the companies themselves adding their information there. So feel free to contact them if you need that help. I also added another form here, which is to request ventilators. Now, this is obviously, very early on, but we know that some people might be interested in, having ventilators for, initial testing or for preclinical research, for clinical trials. And we want to understand, what is the actual demand for this? And once we start receiving, inquiries on this form, then we'll know how to reach out to these different individuals based off of their needs and what type of phase in the development process they're interested in becoming involved with in obtaining these ventilators. Also, we have the newsletter sign up and a link there to support our efforts if you would like. So here's some quick news. This is news for me. Maybe it's news for you too. I received a response from FEMA, HHS, and I actually went ahead and uploaded a PDF of the email that they sent me, where they provide some guidance from the FDA. They provide several links specifically focused on these emergency ventilators. And this email that I received is only from a couple of days ago, from the 30th. Would somebody like to comment or provide some input here as to what they have heard from FEMA or the FDA or another government agency regarding approvals for these types of devices? Please feel free to unmute yourself. No? Okay, I'll wait another second here in case you have any insights.
The MHRA actually gave some information in that section.
Great. This is Yuval.
Hi everyone. I'm Yuval. I'm a paramedic in the Israeli EMS system and medical engineering student, almost completing my degree. Coronavirus stopped the process so far. I'm part of the Israeli team that developed the AmboVent, and we worked accordingly to the MHRA guidance.
Great, thank you. And actually, thanks for joining us. I have included here a slide so that then we can also talk about your efforts with AmboVent. Here it is. Next slide. So this is some news. Yuval, would you like to speak a few minutes about this and AmboVent? Will you have worked on some of the information that you have already uploaded online?
Sure. Can you put the slide on so I'll see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes,
thank you. We are a team that are made of about 40 people that came together on March 18th. There was a call out from our health department that they're trying, they want to develop an BVM-based ventilator, which we translated immediately as a last resort ventilator because actually I don't know who is listening right now, but in the medical aspect, BVM ventilators are not meant to be used as a long-term ventilator for patients because it's a volume-based ventilator. So we took the device as is and we manipulated it in a way that we believe it's the best way to use it with pressure control, about using different, you can change the peak pressure you want to use while ventilating, and that way we have a really good control about the patient ventilation using the AmboVent with the right alarms and everything. It's supposed to be a really simple design. One big cooperation we have is with the first robotics competition. I'm actually an alumni and a mentor of one of the teams competing in Israel. And through that connection, we base the whole development around really achievable components, such as window motors that we have plenty of them here in our workshops. Do you have a video there? Maybe, perhaps? Emilio? Oh, okay, no worries. Anyways, it was designed to be really simple. The design is made that the BVM is open for to reach in case of malfunctions, and you can calibrate the machine to different BVMs because we know there are a lot of different models that is being used in Israel in different hospitals. So we try to make it as modular as possible. You have complete control over the volume, the tidal volume, the respiratory rate, and peak pressure. You can get alarms about pipe disconnection and high pressure. And if the machine feels that there's a huge resistance, depending on the peak pressure you decided to do in advance, the machine will stop the specific ventilation and won't push air with force through to the patient.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Yuval? Please feel free to unmute your microphone. We'll wait here for a little bit.
Hi guys, can you hear me by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, hi there. My name is Leo Riza, and I am calling from Sarasota, Florida. We are a product development, product design, and engineering company that also brings products to the manufacturing phase. And I do have a few questions, if it's okay, if I can just chime in a little bit. I'm very, very interested. Now, what exactly data-wise are you providing? Do you have any CAD files that you can provide us by any chance?
You have what? Sorry, I haven't heard you.
Any CAD files that you can provide? CAD files as in, step files, STL, anything
CAD.
that you can provide us to help out?
Everything is in the link that you see in front of you. We shared everything we have. This is our prototype design. It's not built for mass production. We haven't designed it yet for mass productions. We found our prototype to be very efficient. We tested it only in the lab conditions so far. We are expected to try to go through animal trials next week. Hopefully, if everything goes according to plan. And at the same time, we're starting to work on our mass production version of this prototype. This is a quick build we made. If anyone is familiar with the first organization, we love challenges in short term of time. So we got the understanding of what exactly the challenge. We came up with something that we believe is really easy to copy, simple, cheap, affordable, and efficient.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Yuval. Does anybody else have any questions for Yuval or any comments? We'll wait over here.
This is Brett in Kansas. Just as a comment, I respect your decision to make it, test it, and then also validate it before production. But some manufacturers may want to be pursuing that in parallel while the testing is going on to get ready for production, and have everything on pause. If the testing works, then push go, and could save a week or so at least.
Well, because it's a worldwide effort, and we see a lot of distress, mainly in Europe, in Spain and Italy, we put up a disclaimer that states that it hasn't been through clinical trials yet, and we're in contact with different people from different countries to see how they work through the copying the prototype, and we urge them to go through trials first. Actually, we found that a lot of countries, even though there is a lot of problems with a lot of patients that are, and the lack of ventilators, no one is so far is rushing into using it immediately with patients. So I'm really happy with that. And again, open source is made to show the world what we've done so far, and see how people improve it and take it through regulations in their own countries.
Great, Yuval. I think what he was trying to ask is, are you actively seeking collaboration with manufacturers so that they can maybe ask your team to double check certain things about the manufacturing, so that they can already be prepared if and when these tests prove successful?
Can you ask that again? Sorry, I don't think I quite understood what you're asking.
Sure. So you know, some manufacturers, they might want to already start, you know, looking into the technical files. Can they connect with your team so you can start building those that type of collaboration with the manufacturers already, even though, of course, we understand that everything's in the testing phase?
Yes, definitely. First of all, in our website, you have ways to connect with us. And we opened with the help of Eitan and Iram, WhatsApp groups to help and share information with everyone. So far we've been getting most of the information from other countries through WhatsApp, and that was found the most efficient way. So we're open for collaborations. We're seeking to see what other people are doing, how they improve the product, so we can get good feedback and improve it by ourselves as well.
Great, great. Rob, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Yes, I did have a question. So sorry, I was a little late. It took me a while to get my link working, but I haven't had time to digest all this yet. I'm going to ask a couple of quick questions and then make a suggestion, similar to the one from Kansas. But do you have a provision to allow blending of oxygen into the charge area on this system, or have you just got basically the mechanical ventilator portion working?
That's part of the reason well, when looking into BVMs, the oxygen supply is based on the manufacturers of the BVM. All of them have connection in the back part where the
correct, but yeah, okay. So you're just using what's there. The next question is to add instrumentation onto this. You guys have, there's no, you have manual controls on it right now. I'm assuming there's no controller board nor software under development or finished yet. Maybe it's under development for the next phase, because this is kind of what we've been looking for, is somebody to finalize a design for the basic, we call it the core of the system, which is just say the pump. The complete system to be used needs some either expert control manually by somebody trained in understanding how to run it, which is hard to come by right now, or allow a computer control element to be added on to that base structure. So I will go look at your site, but that's sort of what we were trying to, in our effort, we're a manufacturer of downhole electronics / mechanical devices in the oil and gas business. So we build small electronics that control mechanical systems. We were waiting well, we started our own design and then realized everybody's doing that. Just jump in and get with somebody that's got one close enough. But we ran into nobody wanted to collaborate very much, but that's another story. So I will check your site out, but I'm going to ask those questions. I think I know the answer is probably not right now, but we'll jump in on that side of it, and I'll link up with your site. And anybody on here that's electronics or computer, oriented, we need to probably pool our resources to try and get that next piece done to turn this into a system.
Well, because we're using Arduino-based code and control, we have been already starting to develop the control system that you can follow up on your patients remotely, but on the command and control system, medical profession won't be able to accept me trying to change the parameters on the machine remotely, because when ventilating a patient, you want to see the feedback immediately, not to wait in a different room. So we are developing currently a command and control system that you'll be able to see it from all the feedback from the machine in a different room. And we have something that works so far. It's pretty basic. If you're from the, sorry.
No, and that's fine. For remote monitoring, that's probably fine. And I apologize, I don't know your expertise, but just on a side note, the sensors you have to use for the pressures for the human lung and the device, the signals are extremely low. So I don't know that an Arduino board is going to be laid out with enough consideration for crosstalk among the channels where you're on your inputs. That would be found out during testing. So obviously most ventilators are not designed around existing boards for other purposes. They have a board built specific, which our business as well, we have to build our board specific because we have the same problem. So you can test. I'm not saying the Arduino board will not work, but it wasn't designed with that constraint. And when you get into medical devices that you're manipulating things so that the oxygen rates are adjusted, the rates are adjusted, and it's trying to figure out if the patient's trying to breathe. A lot of those sensors are extremely low voltage and they're preamped up to talk to the A to D board. And in that process, if you're getting noise from other channels, then your system's going to get screwed up. So that has to be part of the testing. And like I said, the Arduino board may pass that test, but it'll be blind luck if it does because it was never designed for that application.
Well, I tend to agree with what you're saying. We haven't went through the ECM tests and safety tests yet. It is planned for hopefully next week we'll be able to do it. But we have applied a pressure sensor that works and gives us really precise and accurate data. We checked it in hospitals and their engineering departments, where they test all the the real ventilators. We connected our machinery. We found that the sensor, is really accurate and delivers exactly what we need in order to do the control system.
Great to hear you, Val.
That's great.
Thank
I'm
you.
not saying it won't work. I'm just saying, that's part of the test, and you guys are on top of it and you're testing, and so far it's passed good. But the design we were looking at had 4 or 5 sensors on it, and that's where you start getting into trouble when you've got multiple circuits, and then somebody wants a USB port, and all that stuff has to be designed into and laid out so that those circuit leads are not too close together to allow, and have crosstalk. But sounds like you're on top of testing it, and that's great. Hope it works out.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. I see that somebody raised their hand. Rua Erie O'Donnell.
Yeah, that's close enough for me. Ruri, hi guys. I'm from Helpful Engineering. We've got a whole of ventilator projects and probably none as far advanced as yours. On the point about electronics, one of my concerns is trying to get this delivered to as many countries as possible, particularly Africa. So I would prefer to have things as less complicated as possible. If that means having more manual control, the better for me. If you want to have more advanced automatic controls, do it, but keep it modular if you can. So then you could slot in a more advanced board if needs be, but let's keep the base as Arduino and what you have, if that makes sense.
It does, and that's exactly what you see in our prototype. But then again, I have to make sure that it's clear that this is only a prototype. We finished it in 13 days. We are starting to go through trials and clinical trials. It's not approved yet anywhere in the world, so we can't state that it's safe for human use. It doesn't matter where in the world. So we are going through the experiments. We shared our prototype because it was found to be successful design-wise, and we are getting a lot of good feedbacks from a lot of physicians, both from Israel and abroad. And we just wanted to share with it and let everyone in the world modify it and improve it in order that it will be good enough to start experiments, and after that hopefully help and save lives.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and it was really good that we saw it on the web, because it's nice to see good news. And one question that I would have, one of my blockers to actually get this inside our group and to get it promoted elsewhere is it would have to be verified in one country before we could say, okay, this is an open source project that other people should get behind. Do you have a rough timeline of how long it would take the Israeli authorities to do their testing and at least get it accepted in one hospital?
Sadly, not even the slightest clue. We're working around the clock to get all the verifications we need. hopefully next week we'll start and see some answers.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Right.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. Thank you, Yuval. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
So let's see here, the next slide. Okay. So here are some discussion topics, and this process that you see on the right is a process that's very high level device approval process and development process from the Food and Drug Administration in the United States. But I think it might be good for us to, review and at a very high level discuss some of these steps so we can identify, where are some points where open source projects might be delayed, and also what can be done to speed up the project. So if we look at steps 1 and 2, the device discovery concept and also the preclinical research and prototyping. Does anybody want to share an experience that they've had where they've noticed that there was a delay with their open source process in one of these phases, and what can be done to speed up the process? Please feel free to unmute yourself. Rory.
Yeah, sorry guys, I'm going to butt in. It's not a project that I'm involved with, but it has been surprisingly fast to get accepted. They've actually done a kind of parallel approach where they keep it one part closed just for high quality manufacturers and another part open source. They've got in Spain that the project has now been accepted by the Spanish government. So, okay, it's not FDA approval, but it's been fast tracked in Spain. So I'm not going to recommend everyone go have half and half open and closed, but it worked really well in Spain. How the closed source filters back into the open source project is yet to be seen. So that's just my tip.
Is that the project from, I believe it's called Leitat?
No, it's another one called Oxygen. We have about 3 or 4 projects on the run here, and Oxygen, Oxygen. They have a Model P, which is production, and Model M, which is for makers. The Model P has been accepted by Spain. The Model M is just for makers to say, here's the model, go and make it in your garage. Model P is being manufactured by Seat car plants and Volkswagen, if you haven't heard of Seat. Sorry, I'll stay quiet.
Okay, that's great to hear. So I've added something in the chat here just so that we can have a note of this project. But if you have a link that you can provide, that would be fantastic. Oh, Nick shared the link. Great. Okay, thank you, Nick. Okay, any other comments here? I'm particularly interested in this preclinical research and prototyping phase. I know that Yuval mentioned, undergoing tests and different laboratories that are available. Does anybody have any, any insights into this phase of things? The prototyping, the laboratory and animal testing. Is something being held up here? What can be improved to speed up these open source projects? Feel free to unmute yourself if you would like. Okay, I'll wait a second here. Okay, nothing. All right, so we'll go ahead and move to the next slide. Okay, here are 2 other steps. Devices being approved and reviewed by the regulatory agencies. It sounds to me like somebody got it right with Oxygen in Spain, but it does sound like it's a difficult process to have these devices reviewed and approved by government agencies. Why is that? What can be done to speed this up? Would anybody like to share something else that they've heard? Okay, I'm waiting here a sec.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I don't have a lot of info on this, just what I've been working on. I'm locally in Argentina with a team, and most of the things that I'm getting is obviously the logical implications, legal implications of approving something like this for the government perspective. And what we've been doing locally is trying to all parts, the medical part, the legal part, and the government part, to understand that we're working on an emergency ventilator. We're not trying to mimic something that has been industrial and medical for years. So they understand, how things, how bad things are in some countries in Europe, and that anything will do. Like, for example, the medical community in general started saying that there's no way a ventilator could be used for more than one patient. But then now we see that they have to split because they have to go there. So I think the approach we're using locally and is getting, small traction is this is not a ventilator. This can't go through the usual channels because that takes too long. We're talking about a last resort and go from there, and I'm sorry to be blunt, but what we're saying is if it's death or this, then this is better. And then we can iterate and make it better. That's how we're communicating to try to get local traction.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody else? Is it possible that there isn't enough urgency yet where some of the government authorities would feel that it's okay to fast track these processes?
Again, on the local status, I know the local government in Argentina reached out to automotive fabricators, companies like GM and Volkswagen, and it was known recently that they are far away from doing anything that's useful. I mean, they're big companies and they are constrained by a lot of legal elements. That's why I believe it's slowing them down. And that's why I think the solution will come from projects like this one or the Spanish one. But I also think that the sense of urgency comes from believing that they can be ready. And I think, at least locally, since we don't have a lot of cases right now, that urgency is not something that they're seeing. That's why I think Spain is getting traction, because they see the need and they have the need. So I don't know how can we maybe contact from the Spanish government and Italian government, since they're the ones that need it the most, try to get traction from them.
Okay, great. Rob, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a couple comments. One, I think just to speak to the general consensus of going to the automotive industry. I mean, that's a big, easy target, and I understand why government does that. But that's like trying to build a picture frame from using somebody that uses a sledgehammer. I mean, automotive manufacturers don't build small devices. They outsource that stuff. They build large automobiles. So that's a big problem I see. I see a more effective solution being the smaller businesses who actually have to do, entire from the ground up system design and development. And they've got small shops and they've got the scopes and whatnot to do the design. The trick is, how do you get them engaged, right? It's hard for the people that need them to find those people. So hopefully we can solve that problem. So that's a problem, I guess it's an observation and a problem. The second problem I see, everybody says, why hasn't anything started? Well, all of us small people need money, right? I mean, we can go build a couple prototypes, not a problem, but then what, right? I mean, when it comes to building thousands of units, we can't do that out of pocket. Somehow we've got to maybe figure out a way to, once we get something we can demonstrate. So I'm excited to see we have some prototypes that seem to be truly open source that can be built by many people, and somebody somewhere hopefully will get in front of somebody who's convinced, okay, you convinced me. Because I see capital as a problem for what I see as the real solution to the problem, and that's the small enterprises, but they don't have the money individually. So I'll shut up.
Thank you. And actually, and that's why, we have on our website there the link where companies can, add their profile in there so they can say that they're available. And there are many manufacturers that have been contacting us saying that they're available to manufacture, that they have the capabilities, especially for these smaller units. But Nick, I see that you had your hand up. Would you like to add some more comments?
Yeah, just a final comment on what we were discussing about. I think that one approach that I would try is to get a government that is, from a country that they're actually getting hit, like Spain or Italy, to talk to a government where those, situation is better. So the government with the issue can, tell the other government about the urgency and the importance to create these projects and to back these projects up, but to use the other government's resources, because obviously Spain and Italy, I'm guessing they're back to back on bigger issues.
I'm about to try and make contact with this oxygen group and try and get it further away, not just in Spain. But what I'd like to do to make inroads in them, because they won't, I'm working in an open source team. Do any of you work for the FDA or a government authority that I could say, hey, this is a group that needs to be involved, and they may be able to use what the manufacturers are doing in Spain? Does that make sense?
Yeah, not me. I don't think anybody registered. When I was looking at the individuals that registered for this call, I don't think anybody registered that works for a government agency, but that is great input so that we can start inviting them and different government agencies, because it sounds to me like potentially the reason the government agencies are going to the large automakers, and the reason they're only doing this, or they're only even potentially considering emergency devices once there are many people dying rapidly, is because they don't understand how long it takes to develop a new product. And if they don't understand that, if they don't understand that there are certain things that you can't really speed up too much, they might believe, with good intentions, they might believe that this is something that can actually be done very, very quickly. And they might have the wrong expectation of how quickly even a small device can be prototyped, tested in a lab, tested with animals, and eventually be ready for humans. That's what I'm seeing as a potential issue here, is that the regulatory authorities don't understand the engineering enough to realize that they need to support efforts like these early on. Does anybody want to comment on that, and as far as like the understanding of the engineering side of things by the government authorities? Nope. Okay.
I guess I'll toss
Rob,
out.
yes.
I'll toss out. No, I think you're exactly right, but I think in their defense, I know we have held back until you have a well thought out plan that you can roll out to them, and you know you can deliver it, and you actually have a design, and you have some prototypes, and you've done everything you can possibly do to get it to the point. You really, if you contact them, I can tell you the result, right? They ask a few questions you can't answer, and it's how many people do they get a day saying they think they have a solution, and some of them, aren't standing on the ground, if you get my drift. But anyway, I think that's what purpose of this group, we need to, as rapidly as possible, whatever it takes in an open source environment, get to that point so that we can go with a solution. So again, a lot of progress has been made from yesterday. We now have, it looks like, possibly 2 open source designs to jump on. Other people are still working on theirs. That's step 1. We've got to vet those out now, I think, and then start, as you suggest, let's start adding solutions that are documentable.
Great, thank you.
Let me contact people with that.
Thank you. Does somebody have a comment there? I think I saw somebody else activating the microphone. Nope.
That was me. That was me. Can you hear me?
Yes. Who is speaking? By
this is Leo Riza calling from 123.design. There's a few things that we can chime in here. When I was taking a look, I was just downloading the step files. I couldn't get it done on time, but CAD work, CAD design for everything, we can do on our end. What we've seen before, instead of the FDA, rather it was UL. UL, usually there's 2 locations, I believe, and don't quote me on this one, but there's a location up in Chicago and another one down in Atlanta. And what we do is when we're doing the tests on them, usually they send it to one corporation first. They do the initial mechanical testing, and then from there it goes to the more on the electronics and to do the other testing basically. So I believe what we've done trick-wise is we've actually done 2 units. We send 1 unit to one location, another unit to the other location, so we can get a 2-month project done within 1 month of time. Now, FDA, I'm not sure. I'm just putting it out there. So it might be good to always look into it. It might be a good idea to, because and it's not unlike UL. FDA has maybe a 3rd and 4th process when they're looking at devices like these. But it might be always good to keep that in mind, so that if you're facing an 8-week delay at the moment to get an approval, there might be some tricks that we can. It costs double because now you're sending 2 units, but at least you get to the end result quicker than usual.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Yeah, having a parallel process. I do know that the University of Florida has a live stream on Twitch of one of their devices working. Now, of course, that doesn't give you all of the data. I'm not sure if they have a link also to show you the other parameters that the computer is capturing or analyzing. But maybe Brett, you can talk a little bit about that if you know anything more about that regarding the live streaming and why the University of Florida is doing that and how they're using that information.
No, I cannot comment on the live streaming. We're just tuned into their web links and group chats to access the information as quickly as possible. So they just finalized the design on the PCB board, which we're working on now and ordering materials to begin making some first articles.
Okay, great. So I'll just go ahead and make a comment on the chat here. UF does live stream on Twitch. Check it out. So I guess that's something that would need to be investigated further with the University of Florida. Okay, I'll go ahead and jump to the next slide then, since we've been on this one for quite a while. So the next one is, now just so everybody knows, I'm not trying to say that the Food and Drug Administration is what we're really aiming for with this. I think it should be clear that we're talking about a global effort. I just use this as a model because it was on their website, and I figure other countries have a similar process that they go through. So in terms of this post-market safety monitoring and thinking about these open source projects, right? If it's an open source project, presumably other people around the world, if they see that a government agency has already approved it, they'll start manufacturing this and potentially even using it. How can some of these processes and projects be a little bit controlled so that if and when these different devices are approved by government agencies, there is still close monitoring of them after they have been approved and now they're being built around the world, let's say, after the approval. I know that we spoke about connectivity and being able to connect these devices to a central hub or some type of a command center. What are some thoughts that people have around that? Anybody would like to chime in, please feel free to do so. Unmute your microphone.
I'll seed the waters for you. I guess on the connectivity, I think while we are at it, that's not a bad, it's a desirable feature to add, in that it would allow rapid knowledge gain during an outbreak like this, in a crisis where it's a new virus and everybody's trying to figure out how it behaves. So if the devices were able to collect data and make it available, not private data, but just what parameters seem to be effective, what seem to be the best way of management, it would accelerate possibly the medical side's ability to figure out what's the best response to the disease in a much quicker manner without having to resort to getting reports, getting emails, trying to seek it out by other means. So I don't think you want people able to go in and make adjustments to the device. That's a little risky, but just the general basic information, what was the oxygen ratio, what seemed to help, what settings seemed to produce the best recovery results, those type of things, not any personal medical data.
Okay. And my assumption would be that if these devices are connected to the internet, where possible, and they're used, then if there is a failure in a lot of these devices after they've already been approved by a government agency, if you have all of the devices, even though they're open source and they're being manufactured by different people in different places, if you have all of them connecting to the internet and sharing at least some type of information, if there is a failure in many of these devices and it's a bug that has to be fixed or a mechanical problem, and you have connectivity with the devices, I think it makes it a lot easier for you to then find out who's using the device, where they're using it, track it down, and then try and get to the right person to solve the problem, if and when there's a fix. Because if there is one company that's selling these units individually hospital to hospital, it's much easier to find out where these units are, and you can contact the person that purchased a unit. But with an open source device that's being manufactured by anybody in the world, it seems like the connectivity is really the way that you can get to this more reliable post-market safety monitoring, so to speak. If anybody has any comments on that, please feel free to chime in. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and move to the next slide.
Sorry, I'm going to chime in just one time. It's a double-edged sword, adding features like internet connectivity, because that makes it harder to get compliance with the regulators. So I like the idea. I think it may need to be optional just in case it makes it harder to get the FDA to approve.
Okay, great. And other agencies. Okay, good to hear. Thank you. Go to the next slide here. Okay, so here's an open forum discussion. I did invite some folks working on projects in Brazil. I'm not sure if Marcos is on the line right now or somebody else. I think it was the Open Ventilators project. I think a lot of them are called open source ventilators. But is there somebody that hasn't spoken yet and they are working on a project that would like to share some updates? Please feel free to unmute yourself, the microphone, or raise your hand using the features that you have there. Okay, nobody else. Okay. Again, this is an open forum discussion. We don't have too much more time on this call. We have 10 minutes. Any comments on design, engineering, support? Do you need more support for design or engineering? Yes, somebody just unmuted themselves. I think they're trying to speak. Nope. Okay. Receiving government approvals, I think we spoke about that at length. Any other comments on any of these other items? Manufacturing, distribution, interest in trials. Brett, I see that you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, good day. Brett in Kansas here. The question on distribution goes back to a question that was earlier made about small manufacturers. Most of us small manufacturers are not a Tesla or General Motors where we can do this for free of charge. But that's the reason that I asked distribution, if we know who is the customer, number one, would be, or is there government funding, or how can we be compensated at least to break even as a small manufacturer? That's my question.
Great. Would somebody like to comment on that? Rob, I see that you activated your microphone.
Yeah, I mean, I made an attempt. I got all the way to Washington to a task force, and I guess what I got out of that was you're on your own to get the prototypes, And that's why I keep emphasizing, we really, this has to be well executed, well thought out, and well documented so it can be pitched, because there's a lot of, yesterday, 50 people working on projects, all of them about the same place, roughly. So that's my comment. You're not going to get money up front. You're going to have to show up with a prototype and a very good plan that can be vetted. The other solution would be to try to go a GoFundMe type situation. Having been around fire crisis before, I can tell you that a lot of times you show up with a trailer load and they don't ask any questions, as long as you've got documentation that convinces the people that are in a bind. As somebody said earlier, if somebody's there, they're getting ready to send out the door because they don't have a ventilator, somebody's going to sign a release or do whatever they need to do. I throw that out. That's not a perfect answer, but my experience is until you've got something substantial, it's a waste of time trying to get a hold of anybody in the government. I kind of understand that. On the flip side, that puts a lot of challenges up for us because we are fund limited as a group.
Okay. Thanks, Brett. I see the concern that you have there. Somebody else just activated their microphone. Please go ahead.
Thank you. There is one project. Again, this is Leo from 123.design. On our website, we have a project that we started working on called Prelynx, Prelynx. Now, within that project, there's one thing that I want to kind of emphasize, if possible. When we did a grant application, and in the receipt that we got from the government was that you need to be able to have somebody that will back you up as a brand name, basically. So, so the email. So if it's a small, you are absolutely correct. It needs to be not only prototype, and we need to show manufacturing plants, locations, distribution channels. We need to show all of that, and that's exactly what they will be looking for.
Okay, thank you. And this is important for anybody working on a project to keep all of these things in mind. And even if you're not complete with your project yet, even if you haven't received government approvals yet, if you want things to move faster, it makes sense to front load the conversation as early as possible with manufacturers, with distributors. So you're not finishing a design and then starting the conversation at that point. Nick, I see that you have your hand up there. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, just a small idea. One thing that we're looking locally as well for funding is going to NGOs, not the government. I believe the government will have much more bureaucratic steps that needs to be taken before a grant is given. But maybe an NGO that can be closer to the project and can understand the product, and maybe easier to get some grant there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that comment. Any other comments before we move to the last slide? No? Okay, so thank you, everybody. The next webinar tomorrow, again, I've committed to doing just 10 days of these. I know that we'll cover a lot of topics, and there will probably be less and less people by day 10, which is totally fine. I want that. I want us to front load a lot of these conversations, share these ideas. I will share an email with the recording of this entire webinar, including the chat transcript, so you can download it as soon as it's available from the system. Please join our Slack channel, join the newsletter. If you have signed up already for this webinar, I'll go ahead and add you to that email newsletter so you can get these updates. And please add updates via our website forms. You can add a new project there on your own. You can just go in there and add it, and it's automatically populated. If you're a design or a manufacturing firm or a testing company, you can add yourself as well under the suppliers. If you have any contacts for government agencies, even if it's just a website for the right person to talk to in Israel, for example, go ahead and add that in the government section. And as you know, we also have a link up top now for people that want to request ventilators for trials or whatever phase they want them. They can fill that out, and that will help us to understand the demand for these types of units. How much demand is there? Where is it coming from? How many do people need? And I think that will help to justify investments in these different projects via grants or otherwise. With that said, are there any last minute comments before we end the meeting? Please feel free to activate your microphone. Nope. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'll keep this meeting link active for